let's read a couple scary stories I found on Reddit. This story takes place 4 years ago, and it still haunts me to this day. It was Christmas night, and my family and I were driving home from this fancy restaurant. I, unlike my family, wasn't tired, so the 45-minute drive seemed perpetual. On top of that, my little sister was constantly moaning about how her friend didn't get her anything for Christmas. After about 20 minutes of driving, my dad stopped at a gas station to get some cigarettes, and my sister, brother, and mother all got out to pee. I stayed in the car as I had already gone before we left. Once they all left, I decided to play a few games on my phone. I looked at the car clock and saw that 10 minutes had passed, so I immediately wondered what was taking them so long. As soon as I peered out of the car window, I saw a man staring at our car. The man startled me as I didn't know how long he had been watching. What made it even more unnerving is that he had a plain blank face. No expression was shown. It was hard to make out any features as it was pretty dark and he wasn't standing in an illuminated part of the station. He was about 5'9" and looked to be middle-aged. Once he saw me notice him, he started walking towards the car, and I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't scared. Luckily, my dad came back with the rest of the family just as the man took a couple of steps. My dad apologized and told me he had been in an argument with the cashier. I didn't care. I was just glad that my dad was with me. I took another glance at the man outside, and he was still staring, but this time he had an annoyed look on his face. We drove off, and for the rest of the car ride, I couldn't stop thinking about that man. This wouldn't have been too bad if it had ended there, but it didn't. Later that night, I was watching YouTube while everyone else was asleep. Luckily for me, a storm was raging over us. I enjoy storms. It makes me cozy as I'm laying in bed. I put my phone down and just enjoyed the ambiance. That didn't last for long as I heard something smash into the window behind me. I lurched forward and nearly fell out of bed. I thought a bird had just smashed into the window. I parted the blinds, and what I saw next haunted me. I saw a man standing out by my parents' cars, looking up at my room. I took a closer look, and I nearly had a heart attack. It was the same man that I saw at the gas station, only this time, when our eyes met, he grinned. Being the 14-year-old I was, I did the manly thing and screamed at the top of my lungs. My dad came running down the stairs and entered my room. "Why are you screaming?" he said. I told him about the man, and I explained everything that had happened. My dad grabbed a baseball bat and told me to call the police. After 10 minutes, the police turned up outside our house and found the man in our shed. He got arrested, and that was the last time I saw him. The next day, my dad inspected the house, and we found the handle of our back door had been damaged, but not completely broken. This gives me an eerie feeling, as if he actually managed to get in, he could have harmed or possibly unalived us. I know skinwalker stories are a little overplayed, but this is genuinely one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had. For a little context, I'm half Native American, with most of my family being from Oklahoma. I never really believed any of the stories I heard as a kid until I'm pretty sure I had a real encounter. When I was a kid, maybe 4th grade, me, my mom, and stepdad would visit my grandparents' property in Azle, Texas, to hunt or fish and whatnot. Their property was surrounded by a couple of acres of land, so sometimes I would wander off from the house and explore wherever I could. One day, I decided to go for a short walk in the woods like normal. Maybe 5 minutes into my walk, mind you, I could still see the house in the distance. I hear my mom's voice say my name. It sounded distant, but so distorted and close at the same time. I called back to her and looked around me. As I was turning around, I see this tall creature with gnarly teeth and gray, tattered skin looking at me from behind a tree. I stood there completely shocked because of how terrifying this thing looked. It started to move from behind the tree towards my direction. I took off running and crying back towards the house. This is easily one of the most terrifying things that's ever happened to me, and I never spoke about it until a year ago. That last story is going to be on my podcast, which comes out tomorrow, and that will be available to listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can find my podcast and my YouTube in my bio. Since it's bonfire season, let's read some spooky campfire stories. This story takes place during pioneer times. A man and his wife traveled west in hopes of either striking it rich with gold or, at worst, finding a nice plot of land to settle down on and farm. A few months into their journey, they came across just the spot, a beautiful plot of land to make their new home. Winter would be coming in a couple of months, so they built a hasty shack and figured they'll hunker down there for the winter and build a more established house in a few months when the weather is more permitting. They don't worry, as the area is teeming with wildlife for hunting and trapping, so they figure they'll be set for food. A couple of months go by, and the winter is bitter cold and unrelenting. They've finished off the last of their food stash, and they haven't seen so much as a squirrel in weeks. They're both slowly starving and freezing to death as they huddle in their shack day after day with no end in sight. The man's wife is delirious with hunger. Fearing that they'll soon be dead, he decides to go for a hunt. He musters the energy to bundle up and heads out, determined to stay out as long as it takes to find them both some food. A couple of days pass as the man takes shelter under impromptu stick shelters, keeping warm with a campfire in the nighttime and hunting in the daytime. Nearly frozen to death, mercifully the man spots a beautifully plump rabbit several yards away. He takes aim with his musket and bang, it's a perfect shot. With a newfound energy, the man runs home, giddy to finally feast with his wife. What he doesn't know is that while he was gone, his wife had discovered some tasty flesh of her own, literally. The hunger had driven her insane, causing her to believe that her now frostbitten fingertips were ladyfinger cookies. She started off with a few nibbles here and there, slowly pulling the flesh away from her bones. After just a couple of hours, both hands were nothing but bone, so she worked her way up her arms to the elbow. The feeling of something in her stomach just continued to drive her further, until she had chewed away at every last bit of her skin she could reach, culminating in her chewing off her own lips. The husband approached the shack with his now frozen kill when he got an uneasy feeling. Fearing the worst, he steps up to the door and slowly opens it, expecting to see his wife's corpse shriveled on the floor. But instead, what he finds is even worse. This zombie-like creature with exposed teeth and bones writhing on the floor, chomping its jaws with an insatiable hunger. A hiker was making his way through the dense woods of a moonlit forest as he'd done many times before. The loosely packed dirt of a trail not yet blazed gave way under his boots as he ventured late into the night. It was far past midnight by this point, and the hiker desperately needed to sleep. The man knelt down and shrugged off his backpack, preparing to set up his tent, until he took note of a light somewhere afar in the distance. With curiosity, he picked up his pack once more to discover the source of light. As he approached the offending bulb, he began to notice that it wasn't a light by itself, but an entire cottage, lit up somewhat dimly in the dead of the night. Manners be damned, the hiker decided that he'd ask the owner of the cottage for some lodging for the night. After all, his tent could be awfully uncomfortable from time to time. However, after several minutes of bare knuckles against solid oak, not a soul answered his call. He continued to knock and knock and knock, hoping that someone was home to shelter him. After a few more bouts of this, the man pursed his lips, quickly making a decision of ethics, to sleep outside or intrude without invitation. What they don't know won't hurt him, the man decided, testing the lock to see if breaking and entering was in order. To his surprise, the door gave way instantly, the hinges eerily creaking as he made himself at home in the cottage. The cottage was simple enough. There was a small kitchen that was attached to a living room which held nothing but a pull-out couch. It was fairly standard, nothing fancy, but it was better than a tent. The only thing that the hiker wasn't comfortable with was an odd sort of collection that the occupant of this cottage had. Some sort of painting collection of disfigured faces with malicious expressions that lined the walls of the room. Each canvas seemed to glare at the man with personal hatred and malice that he'd never experienced before. After a few moments of curious staring and cold shivers, the man turned away from the art and tucked himself into bed for a night's rest. After a few hours of sleep, the hiker rose with an uncomfortable feeling. He felt uneasy and stood to his feet to gather his belongings before setting off again as quickly as possible. As he packed his bedroll back into his pack, he stared again at the wall once more to gaze upon the odd paintings that he had seen the night before. His heart stopped cold as he realized there were only windows.
Do you guys want to hear a scary story? If you've been following me for a while, you know my lore is I tell a lot of very true scary stories based on a house I used to babysit for. There are two girls in this home named Luna and Aura. Well, that's what I call them. They're fake names for their own privacy. Luna is actually growing up very fast now, and I got in contact with her about the hauntings, and she found my TikTok, and she saw my most recent TikTok talking about the time I had sleep paralysis in their home, and she gave me a story to tell you guys of her own sleep paralysis experience she had the most recently. So Luna said that she was staying the night at a friend's house, and this happened to her about a year ago. And she was staying at a friend's house, and they were having fun, like everything was normal, everything was fine, nothing out of the ordinary. She said she had very few experiences since her family moved out of the house. She said there were less and less experiences over time. She started going to church, and she started finding herself, you know. She said they definitely went down, and she didn't see Pete, her imaginary friend, really much at all. But this specific time, she was staying at a friend's house, and she said they were playing games and watching movies, just young teenage girl stuff, right? And she told me she had actually had sleep paralysis before. Like, she's had it before, but this was one of her scariest times that she remembers. So she said they all finally fell asleep. She said that they were watching Confessions of a Shopaholic. I don't know if anyone remembers that movie. I was kind of surprised when she told me that, because it's like, that movie came out when I was still a kid. I think it was like 2008, 2009. Anyways, regardless of the story, they fell asleep watching that movie. She wakes up at some point, right? Like, everyone fell asleep, and she said that she heard a very jarring sound, and it sounded like very strong, prominent white noise. And she went to look around, and she realized she couldn't move, but her eyes were open. So she looks over at the TV, and it is just a black screen, like the TV's off, right? But there's white noise playing from it, like extremely loud. She said it was extremely abnormal. Like, there's no way the other girls would have slept through this because it was so loud. And she was confused on what was happening. She didn't know what time it was. She didn't know why she couldn't move. She didn't know why her friends, like, weren't waking up too. Then she said a small light comes on, like, from the way she described it to me, basically. Like, she's, you know, laying down, TV's in front of her. And then from behind her, a light turns on. From that light turning on, she can now see a slight reflection in the TV. And she said she saw the reflection of something standing right behind her. And she started to hear something growling. And this is kind of mentioned in one of my story times. I don't know if you remember this, guys. The imaginary friend, the demon they saw her, used to drool on her. I witnessed this happen to her one time, would drool on her hand out of nowhere. And it was definitely saliva. And it was no one else's, it wasn't hers, it wasn't anybody's. So this was a common thing this poor girl went through. This demon used to salivate for her. And she said, all of a sudden, she's like looking up, and she sees this thing, like the shadow of it coming closer. So she closes her eyes, and then she just hears a bunch of weird sounds in her, like in her ear. And she feels something wet hit her forehead. And then she heard a really, really deep laugh. She said at this point she starts freaking out. She didn't want to open her eyes back up. Like, she was terrified. She knew she was having sleep paralysis. God, poor girl, she's so young. And so young still. Anyways, I guess she finally breaks out of it. And when she's like screaming and she actually wakes up, her friends are standing over her, and they're very confused. And Confessions of a Shopaholic was still on. So I don't know if this was a lucid dream. I don't know what it was, but oh my God. She said she felt like she blacked out and went to like an alternate universe. She asked for everybody's opinions on this. So if anyone has opinions, drop them below. She'll be reading the comments. So be nice to this girl. I swear to God. You better be nice to Luna. I'm crazy. I still try to protect this girl with all of my heart, so be nice. But that is a scary story for the day. What do you guys think? Bye.
Can we show them the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go. As you know.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
They went to both.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill, featuring the necklace, per usual. Commission is going towards my nursing home Angel 2 recipients. Simple as that, it comes in a 2-pack. I have been wearing the other one just because I'm lazy. So, on to the story. The demon in the dorm room. Oh? I've toyed with telling my experiences to someone with a platform for years, but I get good vibes from you. Period. After I graduated high school, I went to a local college founded in 1868, the same school that my mom and my aunt went to when it was still a women's college. If it isn't one already, or a show. I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I will see y'all at the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
Snacks in hand, the vibe is set, and once I start, don't eat too much because you gotta stay fine. But come on, bestie, yeah! Hi, bestie boo. I missed you. You know it's story time, right? So that means you gotta eat. Yeah, go get it. Get your snack, get your cola, get your rolling equipment, you know what I mean? Yeah, I started to acknowledge all my gardeners because I did notice that in the comments, a lot of people don't really eat a snack per se, they garden instead. And this is a safe space, we don't judge around here. Anyway, on to the story. For the sake of this story, let's call this girl Amaya. And this story is from London. So Amaya was living in South London, not far from Brixton. So if you know where that is, then you would know, because I wouldn't. More like an older area, right? So she moves into this old flat that belonged to this older Caribbean woman that ended up passing away. Mind you, she does not know this. Like, when she moves in, she doesn't know this. The landlord never told her anything about it. All she knew was that rent was cheap, and that should have been a red flag for London. But it was really cheap, and she grabbed it. You know, economy's hard. So first week into the flat, nothing crazy, just like cold spots, knocking sounds late at night. Like it sounds like things are moving through the raw. There was one specific weird thing that would happen every night around 3 a.m. There would be 3 very slow knocks. And because this is like an older apartment and like an older flat, she's assuming it's probably pipes or something, right? And she found this place for dirt cheap, so she'll take whatever comes with it. So the noises wasn't really bothering her until it started to be noises and then smells. Not bad smells, strong smells, like Florida water, like herbs, like sweet smoke. The kind of smell that you really only would recognize if you grew up in like a spiritual household. Wait, this started to become like an every night kind of thing, plus the noises, and it's making her kind of nervous. But she's like, you know what? I'ma deal with it. Anyway, so one night she wakes up from those 3 knocks that I keep telling you keeps happening at 3 a.m. Except this time she heard footsteps coming from the kitchen to the hallway. Like slow dragging steps. And London flats are very small, so if there was someone else in the house, you would know. So she knows she's not crazy. She's hearing this, and she knows like something's up. So she tries to play it off. She picks up her phone to try to like scroll on TikTok or something, but then she notices no Wi-Fi, no service. Like everything is not working. At this point, she's getting real nervous, you know? So she's like, you know what? Let me take my butt back to sleep. I'm gonna take my ass back to sleep, and hopefully, you know, this is over with. So as she's like laying there, closing her eyes, trying to fall back asleep, she could have sworn she's hearing somebody whispering her name. Amaya. At first, she's like, oh, maybe it's in my head, like I'm falling asleep. But then she started paying attention. It started to sound like the person, whatever it is that's calling her name, is getting closer and closer to her ear. And at that point, she froze. She didn't scream. She couldn't. She felt like something was literally heavy on her chest, and she couldn't do nothing. Safe to say that she didn't go to sleep that night. She was up until she saw the sun outside. She did make a friend with one of the neighbors, right? So she immediately decided to go talk to the neighbor about it, because she's like, yo, I know I'm not going crazy. Like, I'm not cuckoo. I'm not bugging. So let me see if there's something I don't know. So she goes and she talks to the neighbor about it. And she didn't even have to finish telling the story. The neighbor literally said to her, you're in her flat. At the time, she didn't know that there was an older Caribbean woman that used to live there that actually passed away. Turns out, the woman who lived in that apartment before was very known in her community. People used to come to her for protection, revenge, blessings, whatever. She didn't really have family, so when she passed away, nobody came to the apartment to like cleanse it or like pray. You know what I mean. So she took this information with her. She went back home to her flat, that same flat, and she was basically debating on whether or not she should like move out, right? Now, that debate didn't last too long because right after, like, as she's wondering that, guess what she finds? She found a small, like, cloth bundle behind the radiator, like, at her flat. It was wrapped tight inside, like, herbs, coin, and there was a photo. Picture was a picture of somebody she doesn't really recognize. But what freaked her out and what helped her make the decision was that when she pulled out the photo, the date that was in the back of the photo is today's date. Like the day that she was finding that. She moved out within a week. As far as right now, the flat is still empty. Every time somebody comes and tries to rent it, they always end up leaving. Now, realistically, I feel like if she would have just got my ebook and cleansed her apartment the right way like you're supposed to, and prayers, she would have been just fine. She would have been able to keep the apartment. But it's okay. She didn't know. You do, and you still don't have it, and I don't know why. There's literally people in the comments telling you they got it and their lives changed. So it's like, I don't know. Can't help you no more. Just kidding. No, but for real. If you want the ebook, the link is in my bio. It's called Cleansed and Covered. Don't forget to show me what you was eating. And don't forget that I love you. Okay? Bye.
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen.
Did the window
Sean.
break?
Treat him nice and place him where there's a lot of light and water, but whatever you do, don't ever feed him any of your blood. This happened in Mexico, of course. Guys, if I sound a little weird, I'm still healing from my wisdom teeth. So this lady says that it was her birthday and she works at a school, and one of the teachers gifted her a duende. It was ugly, like it was an ugly little duende, and it even felt very negative. She says that when the teacher gifted it to her, she doesn't know if she was playing around or not, but she told her, place him where there's a lot of light and water, and whatever you do, do not feed him any of your blood. After the lady says that, all the teachers, including her, start laughing, and they're like, okay, well, this is a joke. So the day was over, and she ends up packing all her gifts, including the duende, and she says that somebody that was a part of the faculty came up to her and was like, hey, be careful with that because it's not a joke. She was like, don't make a mistake and give him any of your blood or weird things like that. So obviously by this point she's a little freaked out, but she still ends up going home with the duende. So she says that she has the duende in her hand when she's walking into the house, and she has a brother who she doesn't really get along with because he's very much like a big jokester and he's very aggressive. But the second that her brother sees that duende, he takes it from her hand and runs away. He basically ended up liking the duende and he kept it. And throughout the week, the mom would actually get mad because she would see him with the duende and she'd be like, what are you doing with that thing? You know I don't like that kind of stuff. And the daughter, she tried to explain to her that he took it from her. She also didn't like it, but at this point it was his because he's had it for a few days now and she didn't want it, and she explained to her that a teacher gave it to her as a joke. Side note, I just want to mention that the girl and her brother, they're adults, they're not children, they're grown adults that are still living with their parents. So she doesn't know how or when the brother overheard her talking to her mom about the duende. She's thinking that he overheard her explain to the mom how that lady had told her, don't let it take any of your blood or anything like that. And she says that one day he caught her off guard. He pricked one of her fingers, drew blood, and immediately swiped the duende on the blood that came out of her finger. What the fuck? So obviously she's looking at him like, what the fuck did you just do? And he tells her, what? I've been giving the duende some of my blood every day. She says that that very same day, strange things started happening in their home. She says that very night that she's laying in bed trying to go to sleep, she hears little footsteps all around her room. And mind you, there's no little kids. They don't even have pets. She says that she can hear the little footsteps coming like close to where she's laying. And a few moments later, she can hear her brother screaming from his bedroom. She gets up, she runs towards the brother's room, and that's where she meets up with her parents too. They turn the light on and they're like, what's going on? And the brother tells them that something is moving his bed. So the days would pass and she explains how every day something strange happens. For example, she will walk into her bedroom and as she walks in, a random book just moved by itself. She goes into the living room and a whole chair will slide like in front of her eyes. She said that she even sees like her clothes moving, and it happens every time she walks into a room, almost as if something is waiting to tell her, hey, I'm here. Her brother starts waking up every day with new bruises, scratches on his back, and at this point, he is terrified. So she says that one day, her and her brother were in the living room watching TV, and they hear when the mom comes in, and when she comes to the living room, she starts screaming at them, like getting after them for some reason. She says that they hadn't done anything, and they were just sitting there watching TV. And the mom was like, I cannot believe that you guys are watching TV this late at night, and your dad isn't even home. You guys need to get up and come with me. I'm gonna take you to your dad so you can get in trouble. So she says that her and her brother are just looking at each other like, what the fuck? Because again, they're both adults, they're not kids, and the mom was like screaming at them like they were, but they were like, okay, like fuck it, let's just go along with it and we'll go in the car with her. Once they get in that car and are on the road, the mom turns to them and say, when I walked into the living room, there was a shadow behind you guys. I literally just got chills. She was like, we're not returning back home until we get rid of that thing. So the entire weekend, they were moving into some of their family members' homes, and even those family members started experiencing things in their homes as well. She says that she wasn't there when it happened, but the mom actually got a priest to go into their home, bless it, and take that little duende figurine away. And after that, everything thankfully stopped. So if you want to listen to this in Spanish, it's from Hablemos de lo que no existe, and this is what the video will look like. I love listening to them in Spanish because they're a lot scarier than in English. I really hope that brother was apologetic after that, and maybe nicer after that, because what the heck?